Hi, my name is Hoon Yu, and this is FireCracker survey presentation for HCDE 313 class. The purpose of this survey study was to research on how can we improve the waiting time at the FireCracker to be more productive while accommodating population concentration. It is important to note that shortening the waiting time can have a health and universal benefits for our users. For instance, students who use FireCracker often skip or even rush eating their meals because of the long waiting lines, and that can cause various health-related issues. Therefore, it is important to improve the waiting time at the FireCracker. For previous research, one key finding from field observation was that there was a rapid crowd formation at certain time period, specifically from 20 to 40 minutes at any hours, except noon. For interview, one finding was that class schedule affected the visiting behavior of our users, such that they visited right after the class or during free time between their classes. The other finding was that students reported that their waiting time usage was unproductive. For high-level questions, one asks, how can we shorten the waiting time at any time period? And the other question asks, how can users spend their time more productively during waiting? For the context, there were a total of 23 participants who were UW students who visited recently in this fall quarter. For the setting, I have designed a questionnaire on Google Forms that were distributed through in-person and at the site and social media, such as Facebook and Reddit postings. One key result is that participants who visited during the crowding time waited more than those who visited during non-crowding time. In average, they waited 1.97 minutes or roughly 2 minutes more. On the right graph, it displays how long students waited at each visiting time period. Comparing the first and the second bar, people during non-crowding time waited for only less than 1 minute or 1 to 5 minutes, whereas people who visited during the crowding time mainly waited 5 to 10 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes. And similarly, people during crowding time from 1:20 to 1:40 waited 5 to 10 minutes, whereas people during non-crowding time waited for 1 to 5 minutes. The fact that 73.9% of the respondents visited because of their class schedule reflects that people visited the FireCracker right after the class, which ends around 20 to 30 minutes, which explains why there's a crowding phenomenon during 20 to 40 minutes period. One recommendation is that workers can utilize the non-crowding time by preparing the food beforehand. Since there are only few options, they can prepare the popular entries such as 1 rice and 1 protein, 1 chicken, and place the prepared container in the warming station, which can be later picked up by students. The other recommendation is implementing the dub grub, which users can order and even finish the transaction process before their arrival. And once they arrive, they can simply pick up the order without any further process, minimizing the waiting time. For the second result, only 18.1% of the respondents deemed that their activity while waiting is productive. In other words, majority of the students, as you can see on the right graph, felt that their activity was very unproductive or neutral. Especially for the social media users, this distribution was distinct, and people who did not use social media had an equal distribution of productivity rating. To resolve this issue, one recommendation is to encourage users to perform different activities other than social media, which can be observing the menu or looking at the UW news on the TV screen. The other recommendation is suggesting planning their schedule during waiting time. Since scheduling was regarded as the most productive activity, workers can put up the poster or display the TV screen, displaying the UW monthly schedule or motivational phrases such as plan your day, since it will influence students to schedule their day or their monthly schedules. For the third result, DubGrub was considered to be the most as well as second most productive weighting system. As you can see on the graph on the right, DubGrub had the most number of counts as the most productive weighting system compared to other weighting systems in the rankings. Comparatively, current system was generally considered to be the least productive weighting system. This implies that there needs to be a change in current system and more development on DubGrub application. For the recommendation, simply add FireCracker to the DubGrub as it does not exist. DubGrub is one of the most effective way of reducing the waiting time, and it is cheaper than kiosk, cost per patient, and other waiting methods, since the application is already developed and it is controlled by UW technology. Also, DubGrub satisfies a lot of participant suggestions on improving the waiting time at the FireCracker. Here is the user case scenario of how users might utilize a DubGrub. Users can first order their meal right after the class, finish the online transaction as their Husky card is already registered. Once workers receive the order, they can start preparing the food and place the food at the warming station. And at the end, once one student arrives at the FireCracker, they can simply pick up and enjoy. For a second recommendation is implementing the kiosk, which is similar to DubGrub. The kiosk technology does not require any human resource since it automatically conducts the ordering and transaction process. Also, it accommodates the communication difficulties. For the next step, I would encourage implementing different weighting system and finding which one is the optimal solution. Based on my study, DubGrub seems to be the most effective and main weighting system, as students are familiar with Uber Eats, DoorDash, and smartphone technology. It is also encouraged to create groups for each weighting system and compare the results. For the reflection, what I would do differently for the next survey study is refining the questions and the method of recruitment, since some of my participants was not fitting into the inclusion criteria. One limitation was that the small participation pool size was very small, as there was only 23 participants, so the results could be statistically insignificant. One difficulty was designing an effective questionnaire as well as analyzing the data. One surprise was that participants generally did not have problems with the menu and communicating with the staff workers, since I found these two to be a problem based on field observation and interview studies. Lastly, it was really fun to analyze the data and validating the previous findings. Thank you. That was my presentation.